Good morning and welcome back to Operation Defend the North, the third edition here in Vancouver at the beautiful Simon Fraser University campus. My name is Ali Hirji and I have the pleasure and the honor of being the chair and the host for Module 2. Module 2 is called Containment. And the one thing that I remember from my undergraduate studies in this field was containment is not victory. It's a plan. It kind of makes you look like you know what you're doing, but it's not victory. This is an extremely tense situation where if you were following through from Module 1, I'll take 2 minutes to remind you of what we have been through so far. Everyone at the table here is part of ODTN Telecom, a fictitious telecom company servicing much of the BC area that is now experiencing a widespread network outage, although this has not yet been confirmed by our technical team. There are reports, there are concerns, and there are inquiries that are starting to flood our systems. Everyone that's here at the table right now in this fictitious war room play a role within ODTN Telecom, and have all been brought together to assist us with the containment process, because if you can follow the narrative, something's about to transpire. We also have 2 industry experts who have flown in, presumably on their private jets, for this meeting to assist us. Ryan from Clarity and Jeff from Optiv. And gentlemen, I want to thank both of you for making it here on short order. Before I begin and dive into what the media has to say about things that we have not yet spoken about, but they will say it, I do want to take a brief pause from character and give a shout out to a whole bunch of, I think there's about 70 to 100 of you, high school students who are participating in Operation Defend the North, the youth edition called Young Defenders of the North. Everybody, please join me in giving them a big applause. For all of you future rock stars, we know that one day all of us will be applying for jobs to all of you, so please remember us. And keep in mind what I said at the kickoff. There's no shortage of cybersecurity professionals, but cybersecurity professionals who can communicate well, there's a shortage of that. So practice your comm skills, practice your investigation skills, and have lots of fun. But yes, when you do exit, keep silent because we're dealing with a really serious situation. And now back to character. Well, like I mentioned, the media has had something to say. And the next report, at least for me, is quite concerning. I'm going to draw your attention to the first media report for Module 2.
This is Roshan Khan from siberX News. A widespread network disruption is impacting critical services, including healthcare, finance, and critical infrastructure, forcing organizations to find urgent workarounds. First detected at ODTN Telecom, the outage has no official response yet, but reports indicate it is likely the result of a cyber attack. Now, there are growing concerns that the attackers could expand their reach, targeting even more sectors. Officials are racing to contain the disruption and restore communication before the situation worsens. We'll be monitoring the situation closely. More updates on siberX News soon.
So before I actually dive into this, as I mentioned before, for those who are watching online, please keep your comments coming. I have a stream of comments that are coming to me. I'll try to weave them in. Occasionally, I will release some polls as well. To those that are watching as well, a little bit more during the sessions, I will see if there are a couple of questions. Feel free to chime in. But I do want to raise all of your attention to another comment that was made in the chats. And Parul, this might be of interest to you. The question came up that if the CEO has said no communications with the media, how are they finding some of this out? I have, along with Alex, put out a request to see which staff members are on vacation and have logged in while on vacation. There is suspicion that there is an insider involvement at this point. Again, I don't know, but everything's on the table at this point. Alex and Shrey, I believe you folks have some news for us, but Alex, before I ask Shrey to pull up his screen, I believe you wanted to provide us with an update. Please go ahead.
So we are seeing disruptions in the network, both high utilization on core infrastructure, and then we're seeing that cascading down to availability issues at the edge. So there is now correlation between what we're seeing on the media and now what we are seeing on our dashboards. Sidebar, we are still trying to scratch our heads why we're seeing this lag. It turns out we are quite reliant on these tools, and we do feel a little bit blinded by it. Right now, we still are struggling to declare it an incident because we don't have the indicators of compromise. We see a lot of disruption in the network. And
Alex, look, you keep telling me that you don't want to declare this an incident, but we have an outage. Now, I don't know, unless anybody else at this table can tell me otherwise, an outage, shouldn't that also be considered an incident? What's the issue with us putting this out?
Well, it's an operational IT outage, a network outage, and that has already been ticketed, is a P1, and engineers are investigating. But from a cyber perspective, which is where the SOC will jump in and start initiating incident response plans, we don't have the indicators yet.
Look, I have my doubts with all of this. Shrey, I'm going to come to you very shortly once you let me know that you're ready to give us a visual on what's going on. I have asked our CIO, who's been with us for some time, Savannah, to jump into this meeting almost right away. Savannah, I'm going to draw you into this because you're coming into this right now. You're hearing this. I am not in agreement with what is being said. Perhaps I'm not fluent in the parlance, but I believe that we need to declare something out there because I can tell you, and I'm going to show it to all of you, we are getting requests, multiple, to put out a statement.
Thanks for having me, and I agree. We can talk about whether or not it's a formal incident or not, but we have business reputation, and we're hearing about it on the news. I'm interested to know how we're going to move forward in containment, pardon me, and I'm interested to know from our business continuity manager what they have in store.
Okay. And again, just a reminder to everyone, once you're done speaking, switch off your mic and speak a little bit into the mic and a little bit louder. Thank you. Thank you, Savannah. TJ.
All right, it is obvious that critical services have been impacted right now, so our business continuity plan and our team needs to be gathered together to ensure that there is survivability of our services, because we are providing services to critical sectors that are providing critical essential services to our residents and also our citizens. So we've been preparing for this for sure, because there is a correlation between our incident response plan with our business continuity plan, disaster recovery plan, and we have done quite a number of tabletop exercises. So we are going to be assembling our BCP team to fold their shirt and be in the command and control center room and begin to operate our playbook. So at this point, we are in a state that we need to keep essential services up and running. And I want to make sure that we are doing this within the bound of the law. At this point also, we need to consider our service level agreements. We need to consider our contractual obligation and also our regulatory requirement to make sure that these services that we have promised our stakeholders, they are being met. So everybody will need to fold their shirt and get to work immediately.
Rob, I mean, yes, sure, but what do we do?
So, one of the things, and this is the sort of challenge we come into these, is with the technical team deeply investigating and some of the head scratcher, we now have to think about the impact on critical services. Ecom 911, the service is obviously some important services here, fire departments, hospitals, all of those things that are relying on us to keep people safe. And so, now we're forced with having to bifurcate the workforce, with a portion investigating, and the other portion, I would recommend we pull out our earthquake plan and get the containerized assets that are available in containers for emergency networks and start deploying those, because we know they've been shut off and in a warehouse. So we even though Alex has said oh, I don't know if it's a cyber attack yet. We know if it is, the things containerized in the warehouse are safe. They can't get those.
Okay.
Right? So maybe we think about splitting our workforce and having a component of getting those out into service to provide key services as in our business continuity plan.
Shrey, I'm getting your text that you're going to be ready very shortly. I'm also going to ask you, Shrey, some of the audience members that we have online, if we can issue that question that I asked, the poll question. I'd like to see what feedback they can give us. Shrey, I'll give you about 4 minutes before I ask you to pull things up. But Jillian, I want to bring you into the conversation. I completely respect what TJ and Rob are saying. My concern right now is if we go by the alerts that Pearl has been warning us about, if we go by my suspicion of an insider, and, well, if we take what the news has to say about a nation-state actor, you're a critical infrastructure specialist. Do I, at this point, need to start reaching out to other partners in other industries, such as the utilities, hospitals, et cetera? What do I need to be doing? Because then I want to weave in these two experts to give us some perspective once we see the technical results. Jillian?
Yeah, I think, well, first off, thanks for having me and bringing Public Safety Canada into the tent here, because I think that's the first important step that we've done. I do think that this is the time where we need to reach further beyond ODTN Telecom. This is now impacting services for government and hospitals and other ownership groups, and they need to be aware that they should start executing their business continuity plans if they haven't already. So I do think that this is the time where we need to think about how we're communicating. I know you have some constraints with your CI or CEO, but at the time, 911 being down, it's a pretty big, substantial problem, and you certainly have the eyes of the federal colleagues as well watching this. So I do think we need to take this seriously.
Fair enough. Look, I know, Shrey, you're going to be ready in 2 minutes. I want to first go to Parul. Why don't you go ahead, and then Ryan and Jeff, please.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I do have some critical information directly from Canadian Cybersecurity Center. According to them, they also seem to be observing some increasing threats and possible attacks for our organization itself. So I would take that as a clear sign. And what they have also reflected on is adversaries probably using some dormant / not so wildly active infrastructure. So I wanted to circle back with the technical team, Alex and team. I think we spoke about that in the last meeting. Is there any progress on that front? And then, Ali, it's definitely critical to consider this as a close to possible attack.
Alex, very quickly, please.
Our asset management system only tracks the devices that we put input into it. Legacy systems typically are in spreadsheet, and they get deprecated by the teams operating them. I just need to point out, though, that the SOC is a little gun-shy because we did make a declaration a couple of weeks ago, and it turned out to be nothing, and we got our hands slapped. So we do want to follow our processes.
This declaration that you talk about is not something that was brought up before, and you never raised it. What declaration are you referring to? Because I'm not aware of anything of this nature.
There was a false positive that we went down a rabbit hole pretty deep, and then we got our hands slapped by the organization for impacting other business units. So we are wanting to follow process to the T, just to make sure that we are not making another false claim of an incident.
Again, I'll take that for what it is, but I'm going to be coming to what you have for us. Ryan, I want to start off from you. We're going to be getting a very deep dive into technical realities right now. What is it that you'd like to see from us to guide us better?
So, I guess there we go, thank you. I suppose I would like to see some further deep diving, getting more of those technical results as soon as we can, but also from the understanding and hearing from the different reports we're hearing from CSIS, hearing that there's this potential insider in our environment when it comes to containment. I want to start looking into following the path of actual containment. I want to start shutting off non-essential services. I want to start looking into the possibility of shutting off any remote access if those employees are on vacation and remoting in that don't need to be. Let's start to shut off some of those services. Let's get those boots on the ground. We're in the war room, so as we have people out looking at this, let's start cutting off some of those even internal communications and falling back on other methods that was mentioned earlier. Obviously, we got to really rely on a lot of our peers that are in this room to look at those other communication methods and not setting up by email, et cetera. You know, making sure they have understanding of walkie-talkie communications and things like that. Let's get boots on the ground and start blocking.
I'll work with that, and I know that, you know, with your organization, the focus also on utilities, we might tap onto your assistance for that, as we do have a lot of utility customers that have been impacted by this. I do see a question in our ODTN chat as well from our audience suggesting, are there critical sectors that have been reporting these outages? And yes, utilities and hospitals have been reporting in. We are getting flooded with this. Jeff, again, from your perspective and an Optiv's view, what do you want to see from us as we dive into this deeper?
Great. Again, thank you for having me. I want to call a little bit of attention to, I understand that there's a little bit of shyness to declare that incident because of a previous discipline or admonishment of doing that. One of the things I think organizations are going to rely on security to do is to take that step back when engineers are trying to focus on technical problems and provide technical interventions and to try to connect those dots. I think as a security advisor, I'd be recommending to the incident commander now to say, I've taken some cyber threat intelligence. I've taken some reports in the media. I've tried to call home and my cell phone's not working. I've tried to connect these dots independently, and I think that you know, I would recommend that we move forward and say, let's declare this incident. I think we have plenty of top cover for our teams to say, look, we have all of these different dots that we've connected, and I recommend us declare that incident, and with the idea that declaring that incident while we don't want to, you know, arbitrarily just declare incidents for the sake of doing that, but declaring that incident also delays some of that help that we have available to us and some of that time. And in an incident response, the currency is time.
Well put, currency is time, and I will say this, that we've got another comment saying ODTN should make an announcement at this point, as there will be a lot of rumors. For clarity, even an announcement stating that we're looking into the issue would be sufficient. I will loop Trevor into this, but at this point, Shrey, based on your notes to me, you have a lot to share with us. If you can please give us an optic into your environment, and we'll have everybody else watch this as well. I don't believe it's good news, but please go ahead.
Absolutely, Ali. It is not at all looking nice over here. I've seen multiple endpoints being gone away. I mean, they're completely offline right now. I can simply notify that, hey, the statuses are offline. They're not reactive towards anything we are trying to do over here. Initial signs, they point to a slow drip and kind of an intrusion. Small reconnaissance efforts were made today morning. That's what we are looking at the moment. However, there is not much information that we have, but all I see right now is devices just going offline. There is no more information that I have right now at the moment. We are trying to contain it as much as possible. Segmentations and isolations are something which we can focus and look towards, but that's the best I have at the moment for you.
I know we have our senior security engineer, Melina, who has also come in from vacation at this point. Melina, before I go to you, Alex, if I'm reading this correct, can you tell me what segment of the network is giving you alerts? Because it doesn't look like the entire Christmas tree is lit up.
It is looking like it's cascading, and we are starting to see that it is segment by segment by segment, that it's sequential. So that is interesting. I don't want to jump to conclusions yet, but the fact that things are connecting the dots, we are trying to put this through. Again, we're looking for a needle in a stack of needles at this point because our logs are voluminous, and we are trying to figure out what to look at first. We've got a big problem that we've got salespeople now calling into the SOC asking for updates, and that's distracting our team.
Salespeople calling into the SOC, and was this number given out?
We do not know how they would have, probably internal directory, but either way, inappropriate for them to be calling the SOC. It's highly distracting. These guys and girls are really trying to focus on trying to find some indicator.
Melina, I need to hear from you because my frustration is increasing where it's gone from nothing's going on, oh, maybe a device, to suddenly now the Christmas tree is lit up. And all I keep hearing is, we're investigating.
So I think it's going to be a really integral point right now for us to start looking at isolating some of these. It's being shown that the Christmas tree is lighting up on a lot of our systems, and what we really want to do is start cutting off what is at least believed to be safe. So there is going to be some impact to our servers and obviously our services. Alex, I think we're going to need to look at, do we have a dependency list? Like, do we know what is actually going to be impacted when we start looking at isolation? Because that's going to be impacting both the IT network, but most likely I'm guessing we have some operational technology there that's going to be impacted as well. And so we're going to have to start looking at relying on business continuity for that, and the to basically start looking at what we need to do in that physical aspect. Physical security may have to start being brought out to some of our locations, and we're also going to have to start notifying what these outer bands are going to be so that we can continue some of the communication.
Alex, I mean, my questions always get responded to with, we're investigating. Maybe Melina can roll the dice a little bit further.
The Christmas tree is lighting up quite nicely on my dashboard. And, this is obviously a problem. And, while the SOC is blaming the network team right now and the network systems, some threat intelligence that we are receiving and reading through are indicating that this could be related to an attack against one of our vendors. And a few months ago, that may have gotten into their software supply chain. So we're looking into that. That's going to be potentially impacting the firmware on all our routing and switching devices.
Newman, I'm starting to get some additional notes in as well, and I think I'm going to need Trevor and potentially Vivek to chime in. But Newman, from your perspective, Alex has mentioned a bit of friction between the NOC and the SOC team. You're directing our incident response right now. I'm looking at containing the incident, but it looks like I'm looking to also contain some fights internally as well. Any recommendations of how we need to streamline how the two of these teams are working at this point?
Oh, absolutely. And I can tell you right now, there's a few things that we need to put into place. So number one is, let's get our big person pants on right now and make a decision. Are we declaring an incident, yes or no? Can the officers of this company please make that decision right now? So let's put it to vote.
Yeah, by a show of hands, I'd like to know who is comfortable. And Newman, I want to be specific here, and maybe Trevor, you can help us here. Are you saying, because at one end, we've got a recommendation saying, let's declare that we're watching this and we're figuring it out? You're suggesting declare that this is a cyber incident. All in favor of saying, yes, we need to declare that this is a cyber incident? Please, I need a show of hands. Great, I'm going to come into a tiebreaker. CIO.
As your CIO, I'm happy to make that decision, and where is my lawyer?
So we did have the lawyer here for a period of time, but I believe, Vivek, you've been in touch with our legal firm. Please chime in.
At this stage, we have indicators it's possible. We have no proof it is a cyber incident yet. And, the playbook requires restoring service, doing containment activities, but declaring a cyber incident right now would be premature. You still do not have hard evidence. And I'd like to redirect the team to kind of talk about containment, preserving evidence. And when a Christmas tree like this lights up on a network, you first go to the core devices. And I think Newman indicated teams were dispatched. Have those devices been replaced or reset? Can you give us updates on that?
So I'll pass the mic back to Melina as the engineer on the ground. Have we actually actioned on some of that?
Based on the fact that we have significant resource shortages, we have not been able to do that.
Can we put together a timeline and an action plan to start actioning on some of these?
We will add that to the ever-growing list of tasks that we have.
So my request back, my request back to the C-suite now is that we have a resource shortage. We need to start ramping up for operational containment in this particular case. So anything that can be brought to bear from a BCP perspective needs to be brought in now. and we can't wait and kind of waste time on this. So if we've got warehouses that are available with equipment, those need to be opened. And if we have staff that could be brought in, whoever it is that's on vacation or not on vacation, we need to start calling them in.
Look, I appreciate all of this. Just, and Shreya, I'm going to ask you also, just for about maybe 20 minutes from now, I do want to poll the audience online about certain questions that I've already sent you. For those of you that are here in the room right now, just by a show of hands, how many is in agreement we need to send out a communication? For anybody that believes we shouldn't send out a communication, anybody want to give us a 30-second reason why not? Raise your hand if anybody wants to take a stab at that. Well, I will say this, if I don't see any hands, I will say this, that online, I did get a message, and Hardeep, this might be directed to you, and then I'm also going to bring up another thing that's happening online. Hardeep, one of the questions that's come up is, you're talking about communications to users and customers. However, if we go by what we heard about potential, the type of APT that's at play over here, and a potential supply chain compromise, should a communication at the very least go to our suppliers of some of our gear, and should we be putting out questions? I'm not in favor of it, but again, you're the risk and compliance manager. You went to school for this stuff.
Yeah, I would say is that there's a couple of key risks that we need to consider. One is from a telecoms perspective, there's the CRTC. We definitely need to be concerned about from a regulatory and a legal perspective. Looking at the impact to potentially like 911 obligations that we have, as Rob mentioned. There's also the implication of financial risk, in the future, right? So there are, I would highly recommend that at least some kind of holding message or at least some message be communicated to some of our key stakeholders. And then, maybe this is, we're still, as we're trying to still decide whether it's a cyber incident or not, I still feel that we should probably notify, as a heads up that, hey, we probably are cyber insurer, right? Just in case, right?
Yep.
In case it turns into a cyber incident. And then, one last thing I just wanted to make sure is that we also need to be concerned about their internal risk of like our employees, like, what are we saying to our employees too?
Okay. I am again going to loop in both of our industry experts into this, and again, feel free to chime in when you feel like you need some additional information. But shortly on your screens, and maybe Trevor, this is something that your attention needs to be brought to, but shortly on your screen, I'm going to be bringing up something that's starting to concern us quite a bit. And Pearl, thanks to your alerts from an intelligence perspective, you reaching out to the Canadian Centre for Cyber and some of our other partners. Vivek, thank you also for putting us in touch with our other threat intelligence partners, CCTXs, et cetera. Someone's drawn our attention to tweets like this. This tweet is from April 3rd, which is today at 10:50 a.m. It's from Frank Miller, Frustrated Frank, and I'll read it out again verbatim. Surprise, ODTN Telecom at it again. Another outage. Now, Alex, I know that you and I don't always see eye to eye, but I think this might be referring to the false alert that we issued so many centuries ago. This is becoming a joke. Why do we pay for this? Seriously, it's 2025. Get your act together. Go report this mess. There's a link there, and it says the CRCT needs to know we deserve better service than this. Pearl and Trevor, and maybe Trevor, you want to chime in here. Don't ask me who clicked on it because I don't know. But that link is not a CRTC link. Is there anything here at this point that's giving us any indications? Trevor, I'll first come to you, and Pearl from your side. Trevor?
So not knowing if it's the threat actor or not, I think we need to get out a statement. I think we should go to the board and ask for a statement to say we have an incident, not an incident, basically an outage, and we're investigating. Don't admit that it's an incident yet because we don't know for sure, but at least get to the board to say we have to release something, especially to our partners for critical infrastructure, because we're putting lives at risk, not alerting them that there is an outage and there's potential that they have to implement their playbooks.
Okay, Pearl? and Parla, then Vivek.
I have nothing to add, but just emphasize on the fact that we were given confidence from the national security. So I am finding it hard to believe that it seems like we are not doing enough about it.
Well, we haven't yet made out a decision on that communications, and we'll get to that. Maybe I need to do a better job of putting our action items together here, but let's hear from Vivek. Can you advise us further?
Yeah, Trevor, I took your request up to the board, and we did have consultation with external counsel as well. So the direction is you should have by now involved the specific third parties only related to the technologies. You are approved to declare an operational incident to CRTC. You are able to communicate this to internal staff as well, but this is not yet a cyber incident.
I'm going to turn to Jeff first. That from your industry perspective right now, at Optiv, you deal with a variety of different tooling and situations. Are you in agreement with what you've just heard in terms of our approach, just to let the CRTC know?
No. The short answer is we would have been here to advise and to, at the end of the day, those are the decision makers. So we can advise and document and try to provide as much information as we can. In instances like this, we're hyper aware of communication, tickets that are coming in, suspicious calls, tweets with suspicious links, things like that we're feeding back into cyber threat intel, so that all of this are prima facie pieces of evidence that there is a cybersecurity event happening. We're going to be documenting those and continually providing those updates and providing the best advice that we can. Something I would like to say though is just because we don't want to call it a cybersecurity incident doesn't mean it's not occurring, and that if somebody later on is doing a review and putting these pieces together that we knew, there's potential liability in that.
Rob, please.
Just a couple updates from the business continuity front. We did go to the warehouse and grab the earthquake equipment to see if we could start to deploy that. Unfortunately, that equipment is 15 years old, and the last person who operated retired about 5 years ago. So that equipment's not usable for us. Sorry. The other issue we're actually facing with our short staff at this point is staff overwork and overloading. We've had 2 of our staff admitted to hospital for mental health issues currently, and a number showing signs of breaking with infighting and stress, as evidenced by Alex and the team and the network team. We do need to start doing something to bring in additional resources to protect the mental health and safety of our staff.
I appreciate that note. I think, Newman, you wanted to chime in, and then I want to go to Ryan as well to see his perspective. Newman, go ahead.
Yeah, understood. So now that the board and the C-suite have given us direction that this is an operational incident, effectively, from an incident response perspective, we're going to start to coordinate all of the efforts. Effectively, all of the service teams will be falling under my department at this point. They'll be reporting to me, all department heads that have to deal with services. They would then have a cadence of about 2 hours. Every 2 hours, there has to be an update. There'll be a team that'll be assessing, especially from a cybersecurity perspective, assessing to see whether or not there is evidence of a cyber attack, and they are charged with that investigation. The services teams will be given tasks to do with regards to containing the incident and checking on whether or not they have backup equipment, whether the backup equipment is viable, as mentioned by Rob, to then look at what other solutions are available to bring services back online, whether that is through procurement, borrowing, begging, wherever we can find information and equipment, we're going to use that. So those are the cadence that we have set up. So every 2 hours, department heads will be reporting to me. We'll be setting up a 4-hour cadence with our senior executives to update them. But since this is an operational incident at this moment, that's how we've basically planned for this, and we will continue to push on and progress at this point. From a communications perspective, we will have to look at the operations communications to go out, whether those are holding messages or standardized messaging that needs to go out. We need to look at those and get the communications teams prepared. In the meantime, just because it's not a cyber-related incident doesn't mean that we won't prepare for it. Okay. We'll just make sure to have some of the legal aspects on standby. In other words, all the contact information that we need, all the lawyers, all the insurance numbers, it's going to be in our back pocket, ready to go.
Thank you, Newman. I think Public Safety Canada wants to chime in. Jillian, please.
Vivek, thanks for noting the third-party notifications. Question, do we have an accurate and up-to-date list of those third parties that are using our services?
Alex, you know what? You deal with this.
That about answers it.
Yeah.
How's the spreadsheet
Tell me
looking?
that you're investigating, right?
The SOC does not manage customers. We're looking to the environment. We can identify that certain edge routers would be belonging to certain services and critical services, but we've been trying to dig through the pile of logs. What we are seeing is we have not seen, we're trying to correlate. We've seen a cascading outage or a lack of availability and management capability of our core and the edge. We aren't seeing any suspicious logons. We're seeing our typical management systems interacting, polling, et cetera. That said, we did see a strange software update. And I wanted to ask the NOC, was there a scheduled maintenance window in the last 24 hours?
Yeah. And Shrey, after you, I do want to hear what Ryan has to say, because then I'd like to bring up the environment as well. Go ahead, please. If you can unmute, Alex.
For the scheduled maintenance, no. We don't have anything in the schedule as of now until next 72 hours, actually. In the past 48 hours, there was nothing to be done from our team.
All right, so we're going to keep pulling on that thread. We're going to jump onto the management systems and start seeing what was being pushed to our endpoints. We're going to also reach out to our vendors to start understanding, are there any vulnerabilities that we were not aware of in their current firmware or future firmware? And we'll also do a sampling of our devices that we can still manage to pull their firmware and do a checksum on it as well. So we'll get back to you.
Yeah, and Alex, I'm going to go to Ryan, because I'll tell you this much. I've just got a comment come in saying Alex's answers are not really helping. They're giving us more chaos and confusion. And you know what? You can pull on those threads, but it's probably going to be your hair next. I'm not quite feeling this right. But anyways, we'll come. Shrey, I did get your message that you're going to be ready with the technical environment. Ryan, you're the industry expert for a reason. I need your perspective right now.
Yeah, thank you. So I would be having some discussions to see with the communication managers and the directors of that to see if we can extend that messaging beyond third parties and talk to some of the critical infrastructure that relies on our services for continuous uptime. For a couple different reasons. One, they're vital services to the community, and we need to keep this going. They also have to be aware, as we've seen from that Christmas tree, that cascading effect. We don't know at this time if we're the target or if they're the targets and we're the means of getting to them. So we need to make them aware of what's happening in our environment to make sure that they have some business continuity to come up with additional plans, fall back, do their own backups, do their own monitoring to make sure that they're aware and to be monitoring for any potential issues coming their way.
Thank you. I'm going to do my best to get this up on the screens right now, but Shrey, I think you're ready with a bit of an update as I also get some more intelligence and now some suspicious texts going out to customers. I'll sift through that, but Shrey, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell us what you're seeing and to give us some perspective.
Absolutely, Ari. So as Alex pointed out, there was a particular change log which we saw. As you can see, the entire network is down right now. We don't see any updates, any movements over here, and it's just blinking red. There is no more updates to be seen on the diagram over here. However, when we were skimming through the logs, as Alex pointed out, the change logs, we do confirm there is an unauthorized config push which was made a couple of minutes ago, and for now we have isolated that particular zone and flagged it as a breach zone.
Hold on. Can you just go back and you say there's been an unauthorized push, a
Yes.
configuration push? By whom?
I wish I could answer that. I really wish I had answers to those things, but as of now, that's all I know.
Jeff, I have to loop you in, and Alina as well, and maybe Ryan, you can help me understand this. Is this normal that we don't know how a configuration has been pushed?
Simple answer is yes, in a lot of cases. However, depending on the level of technology that we have, there is a lot of logs that we could be looking at, we should be looking at. But in these industries, a lot of times there is cases where we have no clue or no idea when and why a change was pushed and no record of it.
Fair enough. Please continue, Shrey. Unless, Melina, if you want to help me make some sense of this.
I was going to say that I think at this point, seeing as this has been identified as an operational incident, is that we may need to actually consider bringing in experts within the field to be able to help us understand this. There's a limited amount of skill set that we would be able to have with our operational roles. We will need some cybersecurity incident response expertise to come in and help.
Well, he has the title.
Yes, I do. That said, I think the operations manager would probably be reporting this to us at this point, saying that they don't have the right expertise. We would have to then coordinate, reach out to the vendor that's in charge, send in, whoever they can to maybe work with us. The coordination should be happening behind the scenes at this point. And, we're just waiting to see what the results of that engagement comes back with, in terms of whether or not they found something weird or it's operating per vendor standards.
Okay, Shrey, I know I cut you off. You can go back to bringing this up again, and I hope you recognize that it's not just my own frustration. I see our colleague Octavia in the crowd as well, showing visible frustration at this. Can we go back to your screen and your lovely Christmas tree, and please walk us through what else you've been gathering?
Absolutely. So as you can see right now, the utilization just spikes up to 100% and making the device unavailable in real time. The problem is we cannot make any changes onto these devices since they're utterly unavailable. All the network connections that we had, the remote connections, logins that we had, they are, simply speaking, just not available. And I'm trying right now, my engineers are trying the best at the moment just to make sure that the devices are back under control. But Ali, I don't have a good news for you at the moment. That's pretty much it. Every single device which we want me to point to look at right now, they're just going to show the same log right now. That's pretty much it.
Okay, Alex, just out of character for a moment. There's a couple of terms over here like regional RAN hub and utilization. Just so that our audience, we have some folks that may not necessarily know the telecom lingo. Could you explain to us what exactly are we looking at here?
RAN would, I believe, be a regional area network. So, if you look at, there's LANs, WANs, MANs, RANs, a lot of ANs. But that would be very much, it's put in the context of the geography of Vancouver. It would probably be like a downtown core or potentially municipality size. Versus a WAN would be between those municipalities or regional area networks. So in this sense, and maybe if we can pull up that diagram.
Yeah, let's put up the other diagram as well. Thank you.
There you go. So, it is a hierarchical architecture, but that's also what we see from a management side. This is how we manage this infrastructure. How it would look from a service side could be entirely different and represent more on the geography side. But typically, it would be hierarchical where we would have a core that would then cascade to distribution and then access. Going back into character, we did pull up some logs on the management server, the internet update server, and there is a strange log. And the reason we had such a hard time was that log was not going into our SIM. So we had to jump onto that box. We had to work with the NOC to be able to access that. So a firmware was updated or uploaded into that server, and that was scheduled to be pushed in a cascade manner across our environment this morning. Since the NOC is saying that that was not scheduled, I'm ready to declare an incident.
Go back to the ready to declare an incident. Well done. at this point, I'm still, I get what you're telling us. I'm going to turn it back to Pearl, and maybe if TJ, if you want to chime in over here. Pearl, from your perspective now, hearing what you've heard, does it change your procedures in any way? Does it change what you are looking at this point?
Yeah, thanks, Ali. Thank you, Alex. I would like to connect with our partners in CSIS, and I would like to get ready for some internal and likely, to Jillian's point, public advisory at this point, because what happens in such cases when there is a focus on one type of incident, the adversaries actually look out for those opportunities to create more platforms or opportunities for them to be able to exploit people or organizations, like through phishing campaigns or through sending all those odd links, and make the best use of that opportunity. So that would be my next step.
Fair enough. Trevor, TJ, anything you want to add, and then we'll go to Trevor as well.
Yeah, now that we are comfortable to declare an incident, I want to say that it has taken us a while, and a lot of critical services, a lot of critical sector have been impacted. Some people's lives are at stake right now. I want to say I do not want to have full confidence on the expertise of, the security team. We might need to bring in additional resources to support them so that they can help. We have incident response retainer that we might need to bring in. They've also said that they are not going to be able to connect to devices because some of those devices are remote. So as part of our plan, we need to get some foot on the ground to go to different point of presence that we have those devices. If we have to do software updates on those devices, we need people at the site if they are not able to connect remotely. So we need to roll up our sleeve again, contact our partners, leverage all the resources at our disposal to ensure that all these devices are restored back to normalcy so that we can continue operation.
Newman, please go ahead, and then Savannah.
Sounds good. So at this point, if we have a decision to declare an incident, a cyber-related incident, then effectively the cadence of all of the reporting will have to increase. So probably my team will then start coordinating hourly updates on all segments of the business. So all the different department heads will have to report in, every hour to let me know what's going on. I'll be briefing the executives, typically in the cadence of 1 to 2 hours. And if we have any, business continuity planning with regards to setting up war rooms or secure areas where executives can meet and make decisions, that will be 100% be activated at this point. From a communications perspective, we have to start reaching out to all of our partners. If we have anybody that's going to be reaching out to the Provincial Emergency Operations Center, we need to start making those connections now. We may have to reach out to other telecoms at this point. Maybe we have memorandums of understanding with them. We need to bring those to bear at this point. Whatever staff they have, whatever equipment they have, we need to start bringing those in. Legal perspective, at this point, we will be invoking privilege on all communications, everything. So anything that we use, Slack channels, radio channels, text messages, all that's covered under privilege. We will probably be bringing in our insurer at this point. We're going to activate the insurance program. We're going to get the funding available to us and start looking at what we can use that resources for. And I think from an operations perspective, we're going to be very much targeting what we can to support the operations folks on the ground. From a third-party perspective, and with Melina's help, we'll be starting to reach out to investigative teams. Maybe we need to bring third parties in, Mandians and that sort of thing, to bring their resources to bear to help us identify exactly what's going on, within the environment. So that's kind of the starting of the playbook at this point, and we're going to continue to run that every hour until we start getting very, very good results and progress throughout. Communications teams will be obviously tasked to give us time, because that's what we need right now. We need to start actioning on investigation, repair, and getting everybody working.
I appreciate that, Newman. I think Savannah is in agreement with you, but Parul, please.
Could I add quickly one point here, Newman? I believe we would also need to preserve all the forensic-related evidence from here onwards. So please, FYI for everybody, let's make sure of that.
At this point, Alex, please go ahead.
All right, the SOC has pulled out the IRP, blown the dust off, and pulled out a playbook as well. We understand the initial scope of what systems have been affected, and we are going to start working with the NOC to discuss containment. Right now, we do believe that the compromise is from within our network. The attacker gained access to our internet update server, which has essentially root control of all of our switches at this point. So we do know what's affected, and we're going to start doing containment actions right now.
Fair enough. Jeff and Ryan, Jeff, I'll start with you. At this point, based on what Newman has said, how does your team work best with the process that he's set up? What would you need from us to be able to support us better?
So I think at this point, there's going to be a lot of things happening in concert.
Yep.
As a telecom organization, you're connected, right? Just by the nature of that business, you're connected to so many different avenues, and you're spreading potentially this problem, right? So we need to be containing that. We're going to have to sever ties to the outside world at that point until we can get something, some level of confidence that we're not adding to the problem. It was brought up with evidence and procedures, right? We've had a lot of things come through so far that we're going to be taking images of those servers. We're going to be identifying and saving those files and storing those configurations, in a forensic manner, so that potentially down the road, if we have a litigation or a criminal piece go forward, that we have that secured evidence go through. We're going to be basically sitting in your incident commander's pocket and trying to coordinate resources and help give that advisement to how we're going to isolate the network. Yeah. Depending on, if we have root level compromise of these devices, we need to start zone-based recovery and bringing up in a green zone new equipment, new sound and good equipment, and we're gonna have to burn down the rest, unfortunately.
Fair enough. Ryan, from your perspective, especially given that we have teams that are remote and on site as well, any advice that you can give us right now?
So my advice on that is, and coming from the critical infrastructure space, I wanted to pull the plug before I finished my first drink of coffee this morning. I'm certainly ready to do some more containment. Definitely want to put some more silos and conduits in place to make sure that these incidents can't spread laterally as much as possible. So continuing those efforts with that. I would also take and suggest that we would look at cutting off access to internal employees where we can as well. Right? If we know it's an insider threat, we want to make sure that we cut all access, all privilege access, and all of that is controlled as much as possible.
Fair enough. Very shortly, I'm also going to, we have about another 7 to 8 minutes left here. I do want to draw your attention to something that's come to my desk as well, and it'll come up on the screen very shortly. But before I even bring that up, Newman, I'm going to share something that has come to us from the audience, and I'll read it out verbatim because it's now got me concerned again. I mean, we had TJ also point out that we may need some extra and better security folks at the table, and we took that for what it is. But it says, since there was an authorized change and the account has not been identified, the IRP team needs to operate under the assumption that they are in a hostile environment. Should we be switching to completely alternative comms, which have very limited access to general staff? Because there's one more concern which will pop up on the screen very shortly. Newman?
In short, yes. So once that evidence has been presented to us, we would then activate what we call the out-of-band management or out-of-band communications protocols, where executives would have what we call a secure channel to communicate with one another. In some cases, obviously, we have the war rooms available to them as well. All senior management folks that need to be in the loop will be set up with a different channel, another secure channel where we can communicate with them. partners that are trusted would also be brought into that as well. Regular staff, we would have to then segment them off to what we call the red zones, where they do not have access to a lot of the critical systems. They don't have access to the crisis comms as well.
Fair enough.
And we're going to keep it that way until we can find out exactly where the inside problem is and then get to the bottom of it to contain it.
All right. Alex, please go ahead.
We do have a bit of an issue. So out-of-band is documented in our IRP, and we use our competitive Telecom to use their cell network for this. We were using pay-as-you-go phones, and unfortunately we ran into an issue that the pay-as-you-go expires after 90 days. So those phones don't work.
Great. My two industry experts to my side, I trust we can trust you based on what we're going through, and this information doesn't leave the ODTN circle. Talk about putting trust in zero trust. I know that we have about 5 minutes left. I'm getting some information about some lateral movement from these attackers as well. But before I do that, I'll just take a minute. Shrey, if I can have online, if for those of you that are watching there, keep the comments coming in. I'm doing my best to weave them into the discussion. You'll see at the bottom tab, there's something called polls. Some of the polls have come up. Please do respond to them because, as I mentioned, the white paper that we produce, we will be using some of those stats. So please do take a moment to do that. But I love the communication that's coming through my way. And I do want to give a shout out to the siberX team for pushing them directly to my phone. Anybody in the audience at this point, any questions or any advice that you want to provide as we move further into the next module? I'll go looking around if there's anybody who has anything to share. I saw one hand, please go up. I'll take that hand, and I'll try to take yours as well. Very quickly, please. Yeah. Correct. So that we can contain. Absolutely. I appreciate that, and given your own background with Canary, it makes a lot of sense. For the audience watching online, the recommendation was that the IOCs that have been captured, that should now inform or should be going out to federal bodies and other bodies as well, so that they are on the highest state of alert. I'll take one more. I saw a hand up there very, very quickly. Yes, please go ahead, and a little bit louder if you can.
Is this specifically for Alex, actually?
Uh-oh.
There seems to be this recurring theme of this is outdated, this isn't working. And this is also very common in general.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get, like, what was your mindset behind following the documents of the playbook, basically? Because even that, I know that there was a previous, we can pause it.
Right.
Other things going on, and I actually do agree with a lot of the reasons, but it did feel, once again, with that recurring theme of things being outdated, you were kind of sticking to playbooks that did seem quite dogmatic, actually.
Yep. For the online audience, it's just about, with everything being outdated, are we following a playbook? We're being a little bit dogmatic. Do we need to think outside of the box or perhaps burn the box completely? Alex, very quickly.
We're a process-driven organization, and every time the SOC has stepped out of process.
Talk about people, process, technology, and in that order. All right. Well, thank you for that question. I appreciate that. And I will tell you this, we're going to bring this session to a conclusion. But before I do that, I'm going to bring up one little thing that has now come to our attention as well. It's going to come up onto your screens. This was a series of screenshots that are being started to come out. We have a couple of our customers who are using our Roam Like Home function as well. And some of them have started to receive text messages. One goes back even to April 1st saying, urgent final notice, your bill is past due, failure to pay immediately will result in service disruption, act now to avoid interruption. And I can tell you that this is not just one text, there have been multiple, and this is continuing to be an issue because we're now hearing from folks who are able to connect with us that they're getting requests to make payments in order to get services back up. And I know we were here from a containment perspective to contain what is going on. We actually don't know how far this attacker is willing to go, and we have a lot of questions at our table. In the interest of time, and because we have lunch coming up next, I will turn it over very, very briefly now to Newman, because he's going to be taking over the next module from me, and I'll be supporting him. But Newman, given what we now know in the containment phase, what can our audience, both online and in person, expect this group to go through in the next module?
The next module will be targeting sort of the eradication phase, which means we're now actually going to start planning, first and foremost, the actions that we'll be taking to start to clean and sweep the entire environment. We'll start to set up green zones across the entire organization, and we'll continue to add additional capabilities, equipment, staff members to the green zone and continue to grow that out. But there is going to be one very, very, very critical C-suite decision, and that is what are the actions, what is the strategy action that we're going to be taking right now? Obviously, we can see that the bad guys have their hands in the environment. We need to get a very good idea of what our next strategy point is going to be. So we can use some of the previous incidents that have happened locally here with a particular local, I could say, food and drug company. They chose a strategy of keeping the lights, turning everything off and then making the repairs. We also have another strategy that we can say of keeping the lights on but playing a bit of whack-a-mole and try to contain and fix the situation. So this is a C-level decision that has to come from the C-suite, and once they've made that decision, all actions will fall under that.
Thank you for that. We're hearing some more comments as well. One of them that's asking me to let Alex breathe. That's not going to happen. But it also says, sounds like Alex is basically the captain of a sinking ship, but cracking jokes on the way and smiling like he's modeling for toothpaste. So you're good. You're doing all right. But with that said, yes, Vivek, please go ahead.
No, just Newman's plan sounds good. Just there is concern from the top of the house that there's a lack of focus on the core. And we're also not seeing you pulling in the key vendors of the infrastructure you're trying to fix. They should be on the ground. So there's been a request for CEO to CEO conversations with those key vendors, and and a prioritization of what you're restoring. Probably, the staff laptops might not be the first thing, but we understand you need people to be able to do the work. And we would love to have updates more about the core and critical infrastructure we support.
TJ, very quickly, go ahead.
Yeah, now that we know that we have potential intruder in our environment, and an account was used to perpetrate this evil, I'm very concerned if we don't know the account at this point. I'm also very concerned if we don't know how the attacker gets in. And I would need you to bring in all the expertise that you need to identify this source, because if you don't know the root, we may not be able to do the eradication completely. So, thanks.
Parul, yes.
Quickly, in collaboration with Vivek, we were blessed with sending out the internal advisory and also the national advisory to all the public to avoid any public damage. And it actually relates directly to the last example that was shared, that adversaries are trying to cause more damage, leveraging the situation.
I appreciate all of those updates. Looking around the room very quickly, we are at 12:05 at this point. To all of you that are watching online, firstly, thank you very much for being a part of this. And I hope you can appreciate how this scenario and how this situation has transpired. Before we go and break into lunch for an hour, two very quick housekeeping items is, yes, please, for those of you that have attended ODTN before and have now attended this time around, I'm sure you can see the way in which we're now aligning it to playbooks and a technical development. But please, all your feedback is definitely needed. Drop it in the chat via the polls or just send a message out to the siberX team. We really need that feedback. Secondly, I want to thank all of you for your time and bearing with me for the first 2 modules and allowing me to be the host and entrusting me with this task. For the next 3 modules, we'll have 3 different chairs and hosts, although I'll be, besides them, dealing with some of the prompts and furthering conversations in different ways. But I want to thank all of you for being with me. You know, I've always believed that greater connectivity does not mean greater connections. And there's a big difference over there. Here we are in person, we're working it out, and it shows you the human element of how you deal with an incident in real time. There's frustration, there's mental health issues, there's a couple of laughs, but we have to get work done. And I thank you all for playing your roles in helping us work through this situation and hopefully contain this ongoing attack. At 1:05 p.m., we will begin with Module 3, which is the eradication of this breach, or the hopeful attempted eradication of this breach. Please enjoy, if you're watching online, enjoy a couple of the trailers, enjoy a couple of the breaks that are running. For those of you that are here, enjoy your lunch, and we'll see you at 1:05 p.m. PST. Thank you.